Lots of good advice. So stop in today and visit Mike Stoddard and the staff at West Side Decorating Center. And a good morning to you. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Art Lewis Show here on WSGW. And this hour we'll start by talking about a major event coming up for the Disability Network Mid-Michigan. And we do that with its executive director. Welcome back to the program, Kelly Pilon. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning, Art. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As we do all the time, and I think it's important to do, give everybody an overview of the Disability Network Mid-Michigan, what you do and where you do it.
All right. Sounds good. Disability Network Mid-Michigan is a grassroots advocacy organization. We provide services in 12 counties in the Mid-Michigan area. We are one of 15 centers for independent living in the state of Michigan, and our mission is to promote and encourage independence for all people with disabilities with our long-term vision of creating accessible and inclusive communities for everyone.
And Kelly, I know I've asked you this before, but how do you define a disability? I know there are obviously visual disabilities we can see, but there are folks with disabilities we can't see. How do you differentiate between someone who is not suffering a disability and someone who is?
Well, technically, the definition of disability is something that affects one or more activities of daily living. So it might be as significant as your ability to walk or get out of bed or get dressed by yourself, but it might be something that is also maybe just gives you a struggle with concentrating. Maybe you can't hear so well. You have some difficulty seeing in low light. So it really doesn't, there's not like one specific disability. It's more about the activities that are affected by the disability that you have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but even though we see this a lot in the older population, obviously, as we age, we gain all kinds of maladies, but it really doesn't know any age distinction, does it?
That is absolutely true. Disability is the one group that anybody can join at any time. Statistically, we know that 70% of people with disabilities were not born with their disability, but rather acquire it later in life, either due to an accident, an injury, or just a change in their health condition. And aging is part of that process. And so, a lot of times older adults say, well, I'm just getting older, but really technically what is happening to them does qualify as a disability. And so, we welcome them as part of our community and want the world and our communities to be as accessible for everyone so that as people's health changes or as they're aging in place, they still have the equal access that everyone has and that everyone wants.
And we'll get to the picnic here in a minute, but I need to ask you this question. I've known Kelly a while, and this young lady, she is visually disabled. She's in a wheelchair, but life has not gotten in your way, has it? You've not let that stop you from doing whatever you needed to do.
No, I have not, and I actually give a lot of kudos to my parents for that. When I was diagnosed with my disability as a really young child, doctors basically told my parents I would never amount to anything and don't bother to send me to school and think about just putting me away in an institution somewhere. And they said, we're not okay with that. And they literally pushed me my entire life to achieve and dream anything I want to do and be who I want to be. And so, anyone with a disability can accomplish anything that they want to with the right supports and the right mindset and the right attitude.
And we've gotten away from this institutionalize automatically, haven't we?
Yeah, that's definitely something that people with disabilities have fought very hard to have that barrier be broken down and that stigma to be taken away. People with disabilities just need opportunities, and they just need equal access, just like everybody else.
So someone with a disability who feels they have a need for one of your many, many, many services, what do they need to do? How do they contact you to start?
They can call our office at 989-835-4041, or they can go to our website, which is dnmm.org, so Disability Network Mid-Michigan, the first letters of that, dnmm.org, and anybody who either answers the phone or answers the chat on our website, there's also a form on there. If somebody prefers to contact us through email, they can submit a request that way, and just tell us what resources or information or assistance they're looking for, and we will gladly help them out. If it's not something that we can provide directly, we can connect them with other groups and organizations and resources in the community that will help them as well.
All right, Kelly, hang on, and when we come back, we're going to be celebrating the Americans with Disability Act. Coming up July 16th, we'll tell you about the picnic and how you can participate and all the details. When we return, as we talk to Kelly P. Long, the Executive Director of the Disability Networks Mid-Michigan.
My name is Kim Harris.
All right, we're back with you on the Art Lewis Show. We're talking to Kelly P. Long, and she is the Executive Director of the Disability Networks Mid-Michigan, who are preparing a week from Wednesday to celebrate the Americans with Disability Act. So, Kelly, first of all, an overview of this picnic celebration, which happens every year.
Okay. So the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law in 1990. And so in July each year, Disability Network Mid-Michigan likes to celebrate the anniversary of that historical landmark. This is the 35th anniversary of that. And so to celebrate, we are hosting a free community picnic on July 16th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Haithco Park in Saginaw, which is at 2121 Schuss. Big shout out to our sponsors, Meyer and DTE, for helping us make the event possible this year. And the event's going to include live music provided by Stone Street Revival. We're going to have food. There's a accessible beach at this park for swimming. There's a water and beach wheelchair that's available to borrow. There's a fully accessible playground and splash pad. We're going to have lawn games, including accessible mini golf. We're going to have some disability trivia, hand cycles for people to try, paddle boats, and then adaptive kayaking with demonstrations hosted by Mary Freebed at the newly accessible launch area. And then we're going to have vendors on hand to provide information about community resources that can help people throughout the Great Lakes Bay region. And the first 400 people to visit our vendor tables will get a free food voucher. And then attendees will have the opportunity to learn about the history of the Americans with Disabilities Act and share with us how that legislation maybe has affected their own lives or the lives of someone that they love.
Let me ask you, Kelly, the ADA, when it came along 35 years ago, did it change much?
Yes, absolutely. It made so that public transit and public spaces needed to be accessible. So if you think back before the ADA, someone like me who wanted to ride a public bus and stay in my wheelchair, there was no way to do that. Now there's the requirement that public transportation is accessible. There were changes in the rights of people with disabilities to be able to vote. There have been changes in equal access to housing accommodations, meaning that apartments need to have a few barrier-free units so that people with disabilities can rent an apartment safely. It gave us access to education in an integrated setting, and then also requires non-discrimination in the employment world, meaning that someone can't be denied employment because they have a disability if they're able to meet the essential functions of the job. So it really has strengthened access for people with disabilities in our country.
And the proof of its quality is it hasn't changed much. Hasn't been monkeyed with, has it?
I would say some things have changed, other things haven't. There's still a perception that equal access isn't really necessary, but I would say that the law has helped us make sure that we have a leg to stand on when we're talking to people about, the things that people with disabilities have in order to contribute to communities, and making communities equally accessible includes everyone.
So the picnic is from 4 to 7 p.m. on the 16th. Is there a charge at all?
There is no charge at all. Anyone is welcome to come join us for free, listen to the music of Stone Street Revival. Like I said, we're going to have all kinds of accessible recreation opportunities. All of those are free and open to the public to play. Hazel Park is actually making the park free to the community that day. So anyone who comes in for the event can get into the park for free. And then if you visit our vendor tables, the first 400 people that visit our vendor tables to learn about the community resources will get a voucher, and they can eat for free as well.
Well, I will be there for two reasons. One, to support the cause, but two, you got my favorite band.
Yeah,
they
awesome,
are
aren't they?
awesome. Donnie Brown and that whole group, they are just phenomenal.
Yep, we love working with them, so it'll be exciting to have them there, and I look forward to seeing you there too, Art.
I'll be there. I'll look you up. But let me ask you this. When it comes to Disability Network Mid-Michigan, how is the organization funded?
We get some federal funding. We have some state core funding that comes through the legislature, and then we have some contracts with different organizations, the Veterans Association, Community Mental Health, and then we rely on donations and fundraising.
So that Wednesday at the park, you'll be happy to take donations if someone wants to give.
We would absolutely be happy to take a donation on Wednesday if someone wanted to give.
And so the event, with all of the activities, really is open for everyone from young to old, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We really want this to just be a celebration of community and recognizing that, all of us, no matter our age, no matter our ability, have something to offer each other, and we just want to be able to celebrate that with the community. We recognize that through the Americans with Disabilities Act, we've come quite a ways, but we also recognize that work remains to be done, and at a time when our hard-won civil rights are being challenged across the country, this anniversary really reminds us of the power of advocacy, community, and persistence. And so we're proud to stand with our community and honor this landmark legislation and recommit ourselves to the ongoing fight for full inclusion and access for all people, whether they have a disability or not.
And let me ask, in terms of DNMM, how many people do you serve in a year, for example?
We cover 12 counties, and so on an ongoing basis, we probably serve about 900 people that we would have contact with weekly or at least monthly. And then we have over 3,000 folks that we impact just in maybe one-off communications for getting access to resources, helping point them in the right direction, or helping them navigate the system to get assistance and resources. So all told, probably around 4,000 a year.
Wow. And you serve 12 counties. Do you have representatives in all of those areas?
Yes, we do. Yep. I would say our northern counties, which are, Alcona, Iosco, Ogama, Roscommon, we have less folks that we serve there, but really the main thing is because we only have enough staff to go so far, and so we're really slowly trying to work our way into our more northern counties and be a resource right in the community for folks. But yeah, I would say that we have less in our northern counties and more closer to the Great Lakes Bay region.
And one other question, this has to do with housing, because in this day and age, it's getting tougher and tougher, not just for disability, but for everybody. How are you doing at finding accessible lodging for those in need?
Housing is, like you said, for everybody, whether you have a disability or not, is a major struggle. But I would say for people with disabilities who need mobility-free or barrier-free housing, it's even harder. We have a program, our Nursing Facility Transition Program, where we help folks who want to move from a nursing facility back to living in the community. And right now we have between 80 and 90 people on a wait list.
Wow.
Just waiting for accessible housing. If we had housing, we could help them get out of the facility and back to their community tomorrow. But between our 12 counties, we have, like I said, 80 or 90 people waiting for a barrier-free place to live.
All right, well, let's remind everybody the Americans with Disability Act celebrating its 35th anniversary this year, and it will be celebrated by the Disability Network of Mid-Michigan, Wednesday, July 16th, 4 to 7 p.m. at Heathcote Park. It's free to get in. Donations, of course, would be gratefully accepted. And Stone Street Revival will be providing music. There'll be food and all kinds of partner organizations there. And the first 400 people to visit some of those will get a food voucher. Speaking of food, what kind of food are you going to have there?
We're going to have some barbecue and some macaroni and cheese and just some good old outside picnic food.
The staples. Well, Kelly, I'll look for you there.
All right. Thanks, Art. Thanks for having me today.
You bet. Thanks for being with us. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Kelly P. Long, Executive Director, Disability Networks Mid-Michigan. We thank her for joining us today. We'll move on now to open phones for the remainder of the hour. 989-752-6111. If it's something you'd like to chat about, give us a call.
Wednesday, August 13th at
All right, we're back with you on the Art Lewis Show, and we invite your calls because we'll have open phones for the remainder of the hour, 989-752-6111. The chasm between President Trump and Elon Musk is growing because Musk has announced the creation of a new political party because he was staunchly opposed, to the big, beautiful bill, which the president has now signed. And Musk announced the formation of what he calls the America Party. And here's my views on third parties. First of all, there are a lot of third parties, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. The Green Party, there's a bunch. Libertarian Party, you name it. The only one who has had reasonable success before he destroyed his own campaign when you think back, who was the third-party candidate that had enough success to actually put a fear into the Democratic and Republican parties? Think about that now. Think about it. Because there's really only been one who was relatively successful. And what happens is, the third parties come along, and eventually the things they talk about are absorbed by the other two parties and puts them out of business. It's happened a number of times. Now, locally, there's been some locals. Think of Jesse Ventura when he was elected governor of Minnesota on a Reform Party ticket. There have been some. But when you think of the national success, the only one you can really nail down is Ross Perot. Because at one point in the presidential campaign, when he was running for office with his charts and everything, he had garnered over 30% in the polls of votes. He shot himself in the foot with his mouth and what have you. But in the beginning, before he did that, he really was on a roll. And people were watching him. They were fascinated by him. And he proved to be right on a lot of things, like the great sucking sound of jobs heading south because of NAFTA and all of those things. And he pulled out his big pie charts and everything. But he was the last one and really the only one to be relatively successful. Not in conclusion, but at least on the road to success. Here's Mike in Dallas Township.
Thomas Township.
Where is that?
Thomas? You silly fool.
Oh, it's Thomas. It doesn't say that. It says Dallas Township.
Well, you got a new girl on.
That's all right. Okay.
She's learning. Anyway, I have a question, Art, and then I also have a comment about the third party. But my question is, with the new bill that he signed, I haven't heard anything about the Social Security, being exempt from tax.
What they did in the bill, there is a $6,000 deduction for seniors up to singles making $75,000 a year or couples at $150,000.
Oh.
If you get beyond that income level, as your income goes up toward $175,000 for a single, the amount of the deduction reduces. But if you're making $75,000 or under, you have a $6,000 deduction until 2028. A number of these proposals only last till 2028, in which time they'll have to be codified. But
Okay, but that money isn't. I get Social Security. I don't have another job or something to earn another $10,000 or $20,000.
you don't have to earn it. No, the fact that you get Social Security and whatever other income you have.
Well, that adds up.
At the end of the year, if that total income is less than $75,000 as a single, you will get a $6,000 additional deduction, which will more than cover what your taxes would be on Social Security.
Sure. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Now, my comment was on that third party. I heard that Musk, wants to start a third party. Of course, he can't run himself.
Nope.
But he could start a third party.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's good or bad because I really don't care much anymore. I'm just hoping that the thing that we have in office right now, comes out the way we hope it does, and then I'll be satisfied.
Here's my view on it.
Yeah.
The American people will decide whether it's good or bad. And third parties have always faced that. And the American people will be the ultimate deciders as to whether or not we're going to have a third party that succeeds in this country. And I have always said that in order for the third party to succeed, they have to have a charismatic leader who's running for office. Now, you're absolutely right. Musk cannot run for president. But if he could find someone with that kind of charisma, then who knows? I mean, that was Ross Perot's success, was how he presented things, and he was kind of folksy and homey, and people loved him.
Yeah, just different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I did talk to, I have a cousin in Long Island that I talked to them about the mayor running him. They're all upset about that, because they don't want to become a communist.
It doesn't bother them. They don't live under him. If they're in Long Island, they don't live under him unless they're in Queens or Brooklyn.
But he's I think in Brooklyn.
Okay, well, in that case, they would live under him.
But anyway, he was just making a comment about he's my cousin. That's the Chippewa Indian.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
So, but anyway, they're not real crazy about what's going on in New York. So
yeah, well,
okay.
Not too many people are, except the New Yorkers apparently. All
yeah,
right.
Well,
good enough,
take
Mike.
care.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye. Lines open for you. We'll be back.
We're proud to make
We're back with you here on WSGW, and back to our phones. Carl is in Saginaw. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning, Art. You're talking about third-party candidates. They don't always have to win to make a difference in an election.
Oh, that's true. I mean, they take votes away from somebody.
Yeah, they take votes from one side or the other, and that can swing the election one way or the other. In fact, a lot of people believe that Jill Stein in 2016, just a few votes that she got in a couple of swing states could have made the difference there if she had not been on the ballot.
Maybe not. But
Yeah,
they do take votes. The question is how many.
Yes, but the idea with Elon Musk starting a party, he's very conservative, so most likely his candidates would steal voters from the Republican side.
No, that's probably.
I think
that's probably true, which is why Trump is so upset about it.
Yes, and like in some close, races, just a few percentage points one way or the other.
Yeah, but let's not forget to balance that. You got the Green Party, you got all those parties that are to the left of center that take votes from Democrats. And
but they only get.
But remember, it's cumulative. Maybe Party A only gets 0.5%, but you put enough of those parties together, and you got some serious votes.
Okay, but like you said, if they find a charismatic candidate, if they find someone, an ex-football player or